Today we are going to talk about dialysis, kidney transplant, the advantages and disadvantages of each, and how osmoregulation eventually is maintained constant by urinating or formation of urine. Now, dialysis, when someone gets a kidney failure, that means that his kidneys cannot function anymore, his kidneys cannot function properly, or they are diseased. That's why the first choice that he or she should look forward to wash his or her blood on regular basis. As we know that the kidneys filter the blood from waste products, from extra salt, from extra water. So if urea accumulates or builds up in the blood and these salts accumulate also and water accumulates, then this person gonna die. That's why all these materials should be removed, especially urea, because it is a toxic material. So that's why when someone suffers from kidney failure, that means his kidneys cannot work properly and cannot filter the blood. That's why he has to wash his blood on regular basis by using a machine which is called dialyzer. And this process is called dialysis. Now, as we know that veins carry blood at low pressure, while arteries carry blood at high pressure. So, for this dialysis to work properly, blood should be taken from an artery at high pressure for diffusion to occur properly and efficiently, and get back to vein, the same as kidney work. When blood with waste products comes to kidney, it comes through renal artery at high pressure. Then it gets back, once it is filtered or reabsorbed, it gets back to the renal vein. So here, this is the dialysis machine. Here we have a dialyzer where dialysis takes place. Here we have the artery and the vein. They are taken from the hand of the person. It stays from 3 to 4 hours in order to filter blood properly. Here, as we notice, this is the artery which carries blood at high pressure, and here is the vein which carries blood at low pressure. In order to take the blood efficiently and to get it efficiently from the hand, usually we take blood from vein. So if you want to take blood only from vein, it is at low pressure. That's why we connect the artery, as you see, to vein here. We connect them by using like a shunt that drains the blood from artery to vein. Then it is taken from this spot to the dialyzer. And notice the blood gets back to the same vein but at another point, not from the same point that the blood was taken from. So here, the blood is taken from this artery to the dialysis machine, and here also we have a pump to keep the blood moving through the dialyzer at high pressure to make diffusion happens efficiently. As you notice here, we have like a dialysis fluid. This dialysis fluid should be the same as the blood, but without urea. The same composition of salts, the same composition of glucose and water. I mean the same composition, the right composition that should be in the blood after the blood gets filtered. So here, this fluid contains a proper amount of salt. In order to make diffusion of salts from the blood happens efficiently. In order not to lose all the salts or most of the salts from the blood, as we know, in order to have isotonic solution between cells and inside the cells, we should have a proper amount of salts and water. That's why if this liquid or this fluid lacks salt, then all salts, most of the salts, let's say, would diffuse out of the blood. Then the blood gonna lose lots of electrolytes or lose lots of ions, which are needed for the osmotic effect and for many functions inside the body. That's why we have a proper amount of salts, and the same for water, of course. So we have right concentration here in order for diffusion to happen. The same for glucose. If glucose gets out of the blood here, as we know that this blood contains glucose, and glucose should get back to blood because it is needed. So we have right amount of glucose also here in the dialysis fluid. Okay, but this fluid doesn't have urea. It doesn't have urea. That's why all the urea or most of the urea in the blood should get out of the blood, because we want to get rid of it, because it is a toxic material. The blood doesn't need it. The body doesn't need it. Okay, so all of it, if we can, we get rid of it. But if we can't, most of it also is good to get rid of. So here, after urea gets out, some salts and water and glucose also get out to the dialysis fluid. This dialysis fluid should be renewed every time in order to keep the same proportion or the proper amount of substances every time, because if urea gets out, accumulate in the fluid, then no more urea can get out of the blood. That's why every urea gets out, or every amount of salt, every amount of water gets out here to the dialysis fluid, should go out by this this opening. Do you see it? This is dialysis fluid out. It should be renewed. It should be renewed continuously in order to keep the dialysis fluid with the proper amount for dialysis. So here, once the blood gets out, it goes to filter. This filter removes the blood clots, any residues, and worms the blood to get back again to the vein. Also, for diffusion to happen efficiently, the high pressure is not enough. We have here like a membrane. It's like a whisking tubing, permeable selective membrane. That's why large molecules such as proteins cannot get out from the blood. So protein gets back again to the blood. So only the particles which are small and can pass through this selective permeable membrane can pass. And if they are at higher concentration in the blood than in the dialysis fluid. All the steps are written here. And this is a very important note, that the concentration of waste products such as urea should be greater in the blood than in the dialysis. That's why in the dialysis fluid we don't have urea at all. You have to know this point. Now, most of the people actually who does dialysis, eventually their kidneys fail and cannot work properly anymore. Even the kidney already is damaged and dialysis is taking place, but after a while it is damaged completely and dialysis cannot work with this case. So now the patient should look for kidney transplant. Okay, kidney transplant. This is the transplanted kidney here with the diseased kidneys kept, and we have transplanted kidney added here with the transplanted ureter connected to the bladder. Now the person who donates his kidney to the patient is called a donor, and the patient is called a recipient. Or a recipient. Here, the donor and the recipient should have compatible or very matching tissues in order to reduce the rejection of the body of the patients to the transplanted kidney. That's why if they have relatives, they can donate their kidneys. It is better from looking from other kidneys with compatible tissues. As we know, every single cell has a marker or has markers that are proteins, and also they are called antigens, as you took in pathogens and immunity, that the microbes or the invaders, they have antigens that they are recognized by the immune system that we are invader, attack us. The same, different cells from different people have different markers that say that we are unique for this person. For your body, the cells of your body has specific proteins or markers on the surface of the cell that recognizes your cells from others. That's why in order to reduce the rejection of the body against the transplanted kidney, we look for compatible tissues. So here, that's why the person who takes, has a kidney transplant should take immunosuppressant or suppressive drugs for the long of his life, for the rest of his life. Okay, now these immunosuppressant drugs, from their name, immunosuppressant, that's why they suppress the immune system. They inhibit or they reduce the immune system. So the immune system here doesn't attack the tissue of the new kidney or of the transplanted kidney. In this case, this affects the patient. How does this affect the patient? Because the patient cannot attack new microorganisms or pathogens or invaders. So this person is at high risk to get the infections. Though this is the main disadvantage of having a transplanted kidney. Even he gets a transplanted kidney, it only stays from 8 to 9 years with the immunosuppressive drugs, and he should look for another one or return to dialysis if the kidneys can cope with dialysis. Here we are going to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of each, and we compare each. Now, advantages of transplants: long-term solution, because the person with kidney failure, if he wants to do dialysis, he needs to go to the hospital and do dialysis from about three times a week, from 3 to 4 hours every time, which is tiring for this person and actually which restricts his freedom. That's why the advantages of a transplant: this is long-term solution, increased freedom, better quality of life. Also, the composition of the blood is controlled very well, and he can eat wider variety of diet. He can eat a diet that is high in protein, because as we know, proteins affect, if they are high and there is something wrong with the kidney, they can affect the kidney work. That's why he can eat wider variety of diet and drink lots of water, have lots of salts, but within a range also, not such as also the healthy person, but better than with the dialysis. Disadvantages of transplant with the immunosuppressant or immunosuppressive drugs: that they have to take it for the whole of his or her life, which reduces the immune system, and he's at risk to catch diseases easily. And eventually also they have to look for kidney after 8 to 9 years. Disadvantages of dialysis: it is tiring, pain, discomfort, takes a long time, eventually fails. Also eventually fails, and it fails within shorter time than transplanted kidney. That's why here for dialysis, if it works and if the diet is maintained very well, he can cope with it. But if the person is not committed to food or not committed to diet, and he doesn't keep up with the dialysis very well, he need to look for kidney. But he can cope with it. More expensive on the long run, of course. Here, no need to look for kidney if he is doing very well with dialysis. No consequences caused by immunosuppressant drugs. Now, osmoregulation. Osmoregulation, as we know, when someone doesn't drink enough water, he has concentrated urine. Or if he works out or exercises vigorously, he sweats a lot, and if he doesn't make it up or he doesn't compensate the loss of water, also he gonna have concentrated urine. Why? This is what we are going to talk about, osmoregulation. That's why it is advised to look for your urine color. It's preferable to be like pale yellow to white. This is good. That means that the urine is dilute, that you have enough water. So here, this osmoregulation is actually controlled by many factors. Now, one of the main hormones that control osmoregulation or control, especially for controlling the amount of urine, which is called ADH or antidiuretic hormone. ADH, when you it is called ADH because it is against a diuretic hormone. It is against for the duration. It means that the urine stays that much in the collecting duct, so absorption of water is less. So ADH enhances urination. It makes the water less absorbed from urine. So when you have less volume of water in your blood, that means that most of the blood should get back to your blood. You should not urinate frequently or too much. That's why ADH should be secreted at less rate. So here, when there is decrease in the volume, less secretion of ADH, less secretion in order to retain or to reabsorb more water back to the blood. Because of ADH increases greatly, it acts on the collecting ducts of the kidney nephron, making less permeable to water. Less permeable to water means it doesn't let water to reabsorb. It lets water go with the urine. So ADH enhances urination. If you don't want to urinate that much, or your body wants to control urination, if you don't have enough water, so ADH should be secreted less frequently. Now, as we know that when you have less blood volume or less water because of the plasma, that means that your blood cells will become shrunk, or they shrink, and you get dehydrated, which is not good for your body. That's why your body should be regulated and should cope with this situation as much as it can. Now, what causes low blood volume or dehydration? Sweating. If you are sweating and you are not make it up with water, then urine is reduced here to compensate the loss of water. Diarrhea. Diarrhea, which is watery feces, lots of water gets out with the feces. That's why diarrhea may cause death if it's not made up by oral solutions that includes sugar and salts, and if it is not made up by drinking lots of water. Thank you.